Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Ta-da! Hi, this is Dungeons and Dopamine.
Are you sure?
Totally failed this.
I don't know why you started laughing as you pressed record, but it made me start laughing.
It's just because I started the record button for like 10 minutes before I actually pushed it, and then I laughed because I'm stupid and have no chill. I'm Jess.
I'm Bree.
And this is Dungeons and Dopamine.
Dopamine.
Yay. We did it.
We've been out of practice a little, okay? It's not our fault.
On a trip, and then we had a week off, and now I'm sniffly and
I'm in election mode.
Oh yeah, election.
But by the time this episode premieres, I will be done.
You'll be done,
I think, or at least close to.
Yeah. This is 77. Did I say that? This is episode 77.
This
Yay.
is episode 77.
I don't know where I was going with any of this. When it's gonna air. Yeah, it'll be
sometime
after that. You guys, I might get to go to Denver Airport. Not I might. I'm going to go to Denver Airport.
You are going to Denver Airport.
Do
you have a layover there?
I do.
How long is it?
I have at least an hour and a half.
Can
so
you
I will
ask
at least.
them to extend?
Can I please stay longer?
Do you have a 6-hour layover available?
Like
and a
that
tour
one.
guide, please. Never mind, I already know where it all is.
I got this. Pull out a map of the schematics of the building, and they're like,
Please do that.
I probably wouldn't make it to Utah.
That's probably true. Maybe. Oh, you're not laying.
I'm not
Denver.
laying. I wish I could lay in Denver. I should see if I can find the animal comfort spots.
Yeah.
I feel like I just looked at you really shocked, and I'm sorry. I looked at my foot, and there's a lot of dog fur stuck to it, and I don't know why it made me look at you like I was shocked.
How dare you?
What did you bring this fur here for? To my home and put it on my floor so that it's on my sock.
Why did you bring your dog tumbleweeds to mix with my dog tumbleweeds?
When you got here, you heard this story already, but it's funny enough. I'll tell it to everyone else.
They deserve to hear it, too.
They deserve to hear it. So I was putting up my Christmas tree. Well, my tree was already up, but I was fluffing it because that's an imperative part of the process. And my dog was laying next to me. One of the dogs was laying next to me. The one that furs all over.
The furry one.
And I went to do, the dog butt pat, which you do if you have big dogs. If you have a little dog, you might not know the big dog butt pat.
It can be aggressive.
It can be aggressive.
They like it.
Exactly. They love it. They're like, ooh, that feels nice. And they shake their butt at you to do it again. At least mine do.
It's weird, Jessica. No other dogs do that.
Totally fine with that. Maybe I can get a video of it. Anyway, so I went to do that to my dog that was laying next to me, but it was her head, not her butt.
Slapped her.
I did, right on the top of her poor little head, and she just looked at me like, I love you so much.
Hey, thanks for that.
I did that traumatic thing that people do where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, and then they climb on top of their animal and hug them to death or chase them through the living room.
Please don't hate me for life.
Exactly. Please. I hugged her and she was just like, okay, this is fun too.
She's like, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but it's great.
Or, I don't know what I did to deserve this.
Right?
Dogs are fun. I wish I could tie that into my topic, but there's nothing to do. I would have been better off
dogs
saving.
In your topic?
Absolutely none. I could talk about Pluto. So I don't have anything to tie this in, except I'm traveling soon again. Yay!
And the dog man travels.
Dog man travels. He loves to travel, that dog man. Hank, you want to weigh in here? You want to weigh in? So, I talked last 2 weeks ago, or last week. No, it was 2 weeks ago. There's definitely an episode in between.
Yes.
I know things. I talked about travel because I just gotten done traveling, and not that I'm a travel guide or about something, but I like to research. So I think that gives me enough clout.
Plus, if you wanted her to focus on something, it was going to be traveling. So
Exactly. It was that or Disney World, okay? I've already kind of done that. So I did not see any ghosts or speak with any dead folk. I mean, actually I did in the, like, parades and things like that.
Right.
So, but none of my theories. I did not find Disney's head.
I'm disappointed in you.
You know,
I thought that was really going
there.
to pull the podcast up to the next level.
Guys, look what I found.
You just bring it back with you. You don't even like take a picture. You just throw it in you put it in your droid bag and
guys, I got a droid. Ryan got a lightsaber. And then I found Walt's head.
Surprise! Awful
so
souvenir.
Smelly.
Awful.
So, anyway.
On that note.
Back to being normal-ish. I talked about travel last week, 2 weeks ago. Whenever I did it, okay? It happened. It's done. I'm going to finish it up now. I'm going to deliver all of the rest of this.
Obviously listens to every single episode that we put out. It won't matter. They obviously listen to it.
They're clearly judging me for not knowing what episode it is. So, I just want to really quick recap what I've gone over already. I'm not going to dive in and just going to remind you. And then I will finish this off. And then we'll talk about something that doesn't have to do with travel. I probably won't. We'll probably still be talking about travel. So my first tip was to do your research, which I think kind of covers all of this, but there's a lot of different things that can be happening. We learned a lot. I used New York as an example. Mm-hmm. You want to research your weather. We got really lucky and missed hurricane season, even though we were in the midst of it. We got super lucky. You want to research what is there, what's available to you, and what's important to you, so you know what you want to focus on and what you absolutely don't want to miss, because you may not go back to these places again, and all you'll do is regret if you miss. So
that has become the hardest part about traveling for me.
Yeah.
Is I both want to go somewhere new every time because duh.
Right.
But at the same time, there's still so much stuff we missed in New York, even though I've been there twice.
Yep.
I could still go back and do things that I didn't do on either of my previous 2 trips.
I really wanted to max out one of my credit cards because the Viva guys were at New York Comicon last week.
I'm glad you didn't ask me because we would have.
I mean, if we hadn't gone to Disney, I would have been there.
Before,
yeah, it would have been amazing. We donated when they were building their new building, and they wanted to create their own studio so that they could do what they wanted. Now they have a whole channel. It's Viva Plus. It's like Float Plane where you can subscribe to just them. It's not on YouTube or anything.
Oh.
So now they have complete control over their content, and they don't have to fight with algorithms and stuff. Super, super cool.
That's awesome.
But because we did that, we got what they call a power coin. And it's a little silver coin, and it just says Viva or VLDL or something like that. If you bring it to something where they're there and they're signing and stuff, you get to go to the front of the line.
What?
Yes, it's amazing.
That is amazing.
And
when we're famous, let's have something like that.
Okay. It can, I don't know what it'll be.
We'll get little coin dice that we can design.
Perfect. It'll just have our faces on it.
Thumbs up.
Yes. The power dice. So that was really hard. I didn't get to go to New York. I totally derailed everything I said, which is okay because I wasn't sure I had enough content today anyway.
That's why she's stalling.
Let me tell you more about Viva La Droit Lady. So the other thing I wanted to remind you of is to keep in mind who you are traveling with. If they have different needs than you, like needing to sit more often, or dietary needs that you would have to consider before you could go. If they have someone with gluten intolerance, you probably don't want to go visit a bread factory. Did you know that there is a Hawaiian sweet roll bread factory that you can visit, and they have a restaurant and everything inside of it? I don't know where it is.
I did not know that.
I really like Hawaiian sweet rolls.
So your next vacation.
Exactly. I want to go to Cincinnati, actually, and meet Fiona the hippo and all the other babies and stuff there now.
Fair, yes.
And then there's a grocery store called Jungle Gyms. And it's amazing, and I have to visit that as well. Anyway, consider who you're traveling with.
And how many random ideas they might have.
So it would have been super awkward had we decided we were going to take a trip to New York, happened to fall during Comicon, and I was like, hey, peace out, I gotta go meet the Viva guys.
Okay.
Right, that would have sucked. That would have sucked for you guys. That would have sucked for us because of breaking off with you. And so just remember, there's a lot of things that go on throughout the years. There's a lot of festivals. I'm guessing at this point in the year, we're about to Halloween. There's going to be a festival everywhere. Every weekend. Mm-hmm. So it might be tough if you're trying to go to downtown in a city. They might be having events or zombie walks.
Yeah, or like Halloween costume crawls.
Yes.
Or
I had a friend, it was one of our friends called me one time when she was in college. She was in downtown in a big city nearby, and there was a zombie walk. It was just an art piece that the art college was putting on, but she didn't know about it. She called me and she was like, I'm stuck in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. I was like,
help.
What? And so that could be super awkward. That could also make you really cranky. Mm-hmm. So those are sort of where we left off. I did want to talk about packing. Mm-hmm. This goes along with weather as well. If you know it's going to be 90 degrees with 90% humidity, I'm having PTSD flashbacks. Make sure you're packing for that. When we were at Disney, I had some compression-y style tank tops, like squeeze it in kind of tank tops. The only reason I had them was because I needed to buy one to go under a dress that I was wearing that was too booby. And the color was perfect, so I got a whole pack of them and I threw them all in my suitcase. And then I was like, hey, I don't mind looking less lumpy. I'll wear one of these. And I died. It was so warm and it was so compressed.
Because it was constricting.
Yeah, it was miserable. I was so dumb. Thankfully, we went home halfway through the day.
You were like, I'm done with Disney.
I'm leaving. Forget this.
Wore the wrong shirt. Have to go home.
Let's leave. Just leave the stuff here. That's
still
Carly
in your
too.
room.
Yeah. We're actually still checked in. This is so expensive. So, sorry. It's okay. I'm just so full of it today. Warm. We brought everything. Oh, warm for Disney. And then also, if you are a woman, you would probably experience this, even if you are very petite, thigh rub. Mm-hmm. Especially in that kind of heat and stickiness. I made sure to have a ton of bike shorts. And I made sure I had those, and I carried like a deodorant stick with me so that if I needed to, I could use it on my thighs. Once you have a thigh rub, you're gonna hate everything. You don't want to walk anymore. You're bleeding, you're hurting. It's just gonna get worse.
Well, and there's so many options. So, like,
there's so
Avon
much.
used to sell, they called it a blister stick, and it was small, and it was like the size of a chapstick.
Yeah.
But it was more for, like, if your shoes were wearing on you, you could put it like on the back of your heel to avoid a blister. But now, if you look into like running or marathon runners, there are a lot of options for like deodorant sticks that work for chafing or just all kinds of different options.
They even sell straight up chafing sticks, and they work like deodorant usually. You can also carry a little thing of like baby powder or just whatever works for you. Thankfully, I was lucky in all of my shorts. I specifically picked shorts for this trip that were longer, and if I wore a dress, or I had 2 dresses that I wore, and I put bike shorts under those. So we did that. Now, one thing you can also consider, when we went to New York, I brought fleecy leggings and like a whole coat and different shoes and stuff. I really packed pretty heavy for that trip, but for Disney I tried to pack lighter because I knew I was going to be bringing a lot home.
Yeah.
So one thing we did, and I know sometimes people will hear this and look at me like, why would I want to do that while I'm on vacation? But we actually did a load of laundry.
I love that idea.
Oh, it was amazing. So the day we took our break, that was our rest day, which we didn't rest, spoiler alert. But
because there is no resting at Disney.
There's no rest at Disney. But I knew all of our clothes were going to get super gross. We weren't going to be able to wear more than one thing after we'd sweated in it and made it disgusting. So you can buy travel laundry detergent, and I brought one dryer sheet. The washing machines at Disney World, particularly in my resort, and I believe this is true throughout all of the resorts, have an app. So you pay for them, then you put your clothes in, and then the app will tell you when your load of laundry is done.
So you don't just have to sit there in the weird laundry room.
Exactly. So what we did was the laundry room was near one of the littler pools. And Carly wanted to go, of course, to the big pool. It had a slide. That's where she wanted to end up. But we compromised, and we put the wash in. And that's a shorter cycle. It was maybe 30 minutes. And started it up. I think it was $3 to wash it. And we went to the pool that was right next to the laundry area. And then when that was done, the phone let me know. It was amazing. It texted me.
I wish my washer and dryer at home would
for
do that.
real, right? Oh my gosh. Then I wouldn't forget.
Right.
I'd still forget.
Same. Snooze the notification.
Exactly. Oh, I'll go grab that in a minute. Anyway.
Oh, it's bedtime. Oops.
Oh, I forgot I did laundry yesterday. So we got the notification. We went in. We threw the laundry into the dryer, which had a much longer cycle. It was like an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes or something. So then we walked over to the big pool and let the laundry finish. And then we went during a very dead time at Disney World, so it wasn't like people were jostling for washers and dryers. So when it was done,
you get back and there's like a line out the door waiting for your one dryer,
staring at it with malice. So when it was done, we didn't have to rush back. We just took our time. I think we let it sit in there for another 10 minutes. And then we brought it all back to the room, and it was amazing. It was fresh, clean laundry, and I didn't have as much to do when we got home.
That's what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Is if I don't have to come home and then throw 3 suitcases worth of clothes in the washer. That would be amazing.
And it was really nice, like I said, with like the bike shorts or tank tops under clothes or even underwear. I knew I could clean them. If something had happened, I knew I was going to be able to wash clothes and have clean ones later.
So you didn't feel like you had to bring like 13 pairs of underwear just in case you go through 3 per day.
Exactly. Or if Carly was younger and had accidents. She's grown out of that now. I don't have to worry about it. But if she was younger, it would have been a great thing to have that luxury of being able to do that. And we didn't feel like it cut into our vacation. I know some people are like, I'm on vacation. I'm not going to do laundry. And I get that. I totally can respect that. But
if you have the chance.
Like it. Yeah. It worked out super for us. So then the other thing is this kind of goes along with what's there, what's available. Remember what's available at your hotel or where you're going. Are you going to need a fancy dinner dress? Mm-hmm. We did in New York. We didn't need it, but when we went to one of our really big, exciting meals after theater, I dressed to the nines. I loved the sequin crazy dress that I wore.
Plus, you're in New York. You gotta.
Absolutely.
Or like even like Mackinac Island, you can't eat in the Grand Hotel unless you're dressed for fancy.
Exactly.
You have to have like a sport coat.
Stayed there, and you have to be and make sure you're checking those dress codes because. Like on Mackinac, you might not be able to get that somewhere else.
Right, yeah. You're not running down the street to the store to get your sport coat.
Exactly. And Disney is very few and far between as far as that kind of thing goes, but it's not unheard of. Mm-hmm. And the other things you want to think about are like your pool. How bummed would your kid be if you showed up and didn't have swim trunks for the pool?
And even if you don't think you're going to use them, like if you have your whole, even if it's Disney and you have your all of your days planned and you don't think you're going to have any time to be at the hotel and the pool, still bring it anyway because
you have no idea what's
what
going
if
to happen.
Like you don't feel good one day and you can't go to the park, but you still want to go sit at the pool with your kid.
Exactly. Or the husband gets
stuck there an extra day.
Yes. Or you just are exhausted and you decide you want to go sit by the pool. Our pool had a full like bar restaurant attached to it. You could get shrimp tacos and slushies and all sorts of stuff. I didn't get any shrimp tacos. It was so hot. We didn't want to eat most of the time.
That's fair.
But I regret that.
But now I'm going to go back for them with that room I've left.
Exactly. Just sitting waiting for me. Think about also the simple things. Chargers, your money. I know that sounds dumb, but it's so easy to walk out without your cash, your glasses,
tickets,
your sunglasses.
Not that you need physical tickets,
yeah.
But like the music festival I go to still has physical tickets or wristbands. But that's always my biggest fear, is that we're gonna get all the way there and realize we don't have our wristbands.
And then you get to either drive home or just be done.
Yeah, because I'm gonna drive home and stay there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always like to look up lists online. The other thing I like to do is utilize my phone's talk to text service. And it sounds stupid, but I go through my morning just during the midday and I'll pretend I'm waking up and I'll look down at my nightstand at what I have to grab from there. And I know I need my phone. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that seems so dumb, but I'll say phone and put it on my list. And then I'll know, because I'm going to bring my phone, I need my charger. So I'll say charger and add that to the list. And then I go in the bathroom. And I know I need my shampoo and conditioner. And I walk through my process.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea.
It's really dumb feeling. I usually do it when no one else is home. But I remember everything. And it brings up things like, oh, you know what? I want my dry shampoo so that if I don't feel like washing my hair that day, I don't have. One thing I didn't put on here, but that I just thought of as that kind of goes with packing, is my kid really wanted to be independent and pack her own suitcase. So I gave her a list of what she needed to pack. And then she was really mad when I wanted to look through it. Not because she was bringing something bad or anything like that, but because
she wanted
"You're
going to find the cat."
Yeah, exactly. She wanted me to trust that she'd done it. So I looked at it while she wasn't home.
That's exactly what I would have done.
I needed to make sure she
Did she do a good job?
She did great. She did perfect, actually. And then I felt like a monster because I broke her trust.
Nope.
But no, it's true. That was really important for me to make sure she had everything she needed. Buying her, a bunch of packs of underwear at Target in Orlando wasn't really on my list of things I wanted to do.
Right. At probably $20 a pack.
Exactly. And then the final thing that I put on my list, besides a bunch of Disney specifically things, which I won't get into, but if someone needs help or wants to talk about it, I will absolutely do so. Food. Food is a whole category for me. Not just because I'm fat, but I feel like when you go travel somewhere, it's really important to experience the food. Mm-hmm. It's a whole part of it, especially if you're going somewhere where you might be able to have something a little different from what you're used to.
It drives me crazy, and I don't have any friends right now that I think do this, or at least I better not.
If you do, don't tell them.
When people choose restaurants when they're traveling that are the same restaurants they can, like any chain restaurant.
Yes.
Texas Roadhouse or Logan's or McDonald's or anything like that. I will not eat at those places if I'm traveling, because it's got to be something new. It's got to be trying something different.
Absolutely. I think you and I and the guys walked past a really fancy Olive Garden in Times Square in New York. And it was like, wow, but I had no desire to walk in because we were in New York. Right. Even if all we did was buy street corner pizza,
it would still be better than the Olive Garden that we can get at home.
Exactly.
Because all those restaurants use all the same recipes for all the same things.
Exactly. You and I actually traveled to Frankenmuth together once, and I brought you to Zender's. Zender's is one of my favorite places.
I still think about that all the time.
We ate there twice because we liked it so much. We're like breaking our own rules because of it. But I also brought Ryan there, and I like to go and not warn people what's going to happen, because what they do at Zender's is you sit down. It's a little Bavarian German restaurant. It's not little. It's a huge.
Yeah, it's a huge Bavarian German restaurant
in Frankenmuth, Michigan. It's called Zender's. There's one across the street called the Bavarian Inn, and it's not as good. Just the chicken dinner at Zender's is way better. It's so superior. Anyway, so you sit down and you get your menu and you order your drinks, and then suddenly They bring you trays of food. Coleslaw. Oh, what is cream? Not cream cheese. Cottage cheese.
Cream cheese would be weird.
Here's some cream cheese, guys. It's Philly. You don't get anything to put it on.
It's just like the brick of it, too.
Bagel or
It's not like...
still in the foil.
It's not like a cute little cup of it. It's not done up really nice.
Not in the shape of a duck or something.
They just plop the whole brick down on your plate. Next to the coleslaw.
Angrily, so that the plate shakes and clatters.
It's really an experience.
So you're going to have to try it yourself. Oh. Okay.
Jessica's like, my travel topic is going to be really short.
It's already 35 minutes in. Oh, I don't know how much of this can stay anyway.
You're going to cut it. It's going to be like 12 seconds.
You should pack good onto your topic.
Think of things.
So libraries.
How do you pack for a library?
Anyway, Zender's basically brings you a whole meal before you get your meal. It's amazing. I love to not tell people what's happening. It's so fun to just see their expressions. Yeah, exactly.
So good, though.
We ate at the Beetle House in New York, which was a whole Tim Burton themed restaurant.
It was incredible.
It's amazing. The food was good.
It was really good. And the actresses and actors that are around, it was
so cool. There's art. It was really neat. I ate at a place in Milwaukee that was like a spy theme. You had to enter in through a secret door in like a bookcase or something. If you came during prime hours, you needed to know the secret phrase, or you had to do something silly like hula hoop or something.
That's amazing.
The drinks were served via one of those like the bank has. You put your tubey thing in, and then it goes shooting into the banker. The drinks are served and things like that, and the pictures on the wall, the eyes follow you around. It was an incredible place, and we never would have known about it had we decided to eat at Red Lobster that day. So I just encourage you to do your research. I know all of this falls under research, but just check it out. Disney World itself has a whole dining thing. Like there's
there are
so
all the
much
options
to know. There's several channels just about dining. Go to Canada.
Just go to Canada.
Les Cellier, I would eat there every day of my life. Anyway, just do your research, experience what you can while you're there. You may not have another chance to do it, so take advantage of it. And I don't ever recall having such a bad meal that I regret trying a new place. If I did, I think it's closer to home, not out in the wild where I'm traveling.
I can't think of any place where I've been like, meh.
Yeah, it's just...
I'd rather have Texas Roadhouse.
Exactly.
Sorry, it's always my go-to restaurant to make fun of because...
Applebee's.
Oh, yeah, that one's worse. You're right. You win.
Applebee's. Thank
Applebee's is the worst.
Applebee's is literally the bane of my existence. When I just had Carly, after she was born, someone had given us a gift card for Applebee's. I literally might have told this story on this. I'm not cutting this out. They need to know what they did. We ordered a hamburger and a dessert. I don't know what Ryan had. His was probably fine. I was just had a baby. We had just come home. We used our gift card, and when we got home, my burger was like a charcoal brick, and my dessert was frozen.
Sounds about right.
Ryan and I lived by it, so it was really convenient to grab on.
And there wasn't a lot out there back
then. Not then.
I mean,
and it was
still
fairly
really
inexpensive. Mm-hmm. That's why it's still open, I think. So that's my travel tips. I apologize if you're already a seasoned travel pro and you know all of this and I'm just repeating dumbness.
Or if you disagree with her or have other travel tips, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah.
I have a Disney specific question, and this comes straight from Zachary Fagan.
Is it don't ever say yas again?
Yes. How did you know?
With a question mark.
What shoes did you wear?
Oh, great question, Zach. We wore Crocs.
All three of you?
All three of us wore Crocs. I brought a pair of Hokas. because I think I have flat feet or something weird, because my feet will die by the end of the day. We did pretty well in Crocs. Ryan made it the whole time, and they had them in Ryan's size, so
which is impressive.
Size. And to be honest, if you're worried about fashion, don't be. Everyone was wearing Crocs, but Hoka's were really nice. My Hoka's are amazing shoes, really comfy. Break them in.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get Zach into Crocs, but I have been telling him repeatedly, like, everybody says Crocs and socks are the way to go.
And if you get stuck in the rain.
Comfort and everything.
If you get stuck in the rain, we carried a pair of extra socks in our backpacks. And if it rained, we could just take them off and switch them. And our Crocs were dry by then.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that is my travel experience. Like I said, I'm not a big traveler, but when I do, I like to research it and do the best I can so that I don't ruin my own trip.
And regret a vacation that you spent a bunch of money on.
Yeah, exactly. So libraries. Do you ever visit the library when you travel? Cool. Okay, bye.
Actually, I mean, we thought about it in New York. We were gonna, but we chose the museum instead.
And the Strand, the bookstore.
Yes, the bookstore. So libraries. This was a request from Leanne, who has listened to us for our entire podcast career.
Hi, Leanne.
We love you. And October was Library Appreciation Month, which is too late now because by the time this episode airs, it will be November. But right now, it is currently October.
And we do appreciate libraries all the time.
We kind of love them. Plus, I recently got appointed to be representative for the library board in my township. Which means I get to learn some of the boring stuff about libraries too. And so my first, this is a 2-part episode. Did you know you could get 2 podcast episodes out of libraries?
I had no idea. But I also didn't know that you could get 2 podcast episodes out of my next topic, and I did.
So we're good at this. This first episode, might be a little bit boring. Hopefully not. I think it's super interesting, but
just
also
gonna make snore noises.
I'm me. So this is kind of I'm going to tell you about the history of libraries.
Ooh, do you have anything about the Library of Do you?
I don't specifically mention it, but you will hear about it.
Yay.
So I went straight to Wikipedia for some background information about libraries. And let me tell you, there is a lot of information on Wikipedia about libraries. Like, I almost got so overwhelmed I changed topics.
So there are a lot of people like you out there.
I guess so. And part of the reason there's so much information is because it broke it down through, like, time periods.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess I should have realized this, but basically libraries started the minute people started writing things down. So even back to like 3000 BC, like Mesopotamia ages, there were libraries. Even when they were chiseling things into stone tablets, they would still gather all of that information and place it into a building that was able to be accessed by whoever needed this information. Before current day, it was expensive to be able to, even like stone chisel a tablet obviously is going to take a lot of effort and time and
hard to travel with.
Yeah, but even when there was printed books, that when paper or vellum first started being available and ink first started being made, we think of it now like, oh, people were just writing anything they could down, but they weren't. You had to have money to have paper and ink and all of these things, and you had to be literate.
Yeah, we take that for granted now too.
For most of history, there were libraries and there was information, and it was all being written down, but there just wasn't a lot of information available because it was harder to get it on paper, basically. So back when libraries first started, or back when we first started organizing information onto writing implements or tablets or paper or whatever we were using, libraries mostly held records. So land ownership, account records, births, deaths, marriages, government records, sales of land, other information that would have been stuff that was super important, maybe like religious texts or stories, medicinal remedies, or knowledge for healing. Maybe if they were a society that was like moving forward with like engineering type stuff or working, that stuff might be recorded, but mostly it was just records and religious texts for the most part. Back then, people weren't just coming to hang out in libraries. They weren't offering like community services. You didn't go for baby day on Tuesday to listen to stories. The people that were interested in the documents that were in libraries were, you know, people that were within the government or the monarchy or wherever part of the country you were in. Or they were religious leaders or very educated people, because again, they were the people that actually knew how to read and write and understand this information, which just wasn't widely known. You typically had to have a reason to go to a library, and you had to have access. You had to be invited or have some sort of proof that you could be there. You had to be a member of a group. Even as time went on and it became easier to document things, the information that we saw in libraries started to expand. They weren't really public libraries for a long time. And part of this would be, you know, there were a lot of different types of libraries. There were religious libraries, there were libraries for like rulers and monarchies and kings, and private libraries that were very specialized. But again, everything was, you had to basically be in a club or be invited or be somebody important to be able to have access to this information.
Eat the rich.
No, that's actually the whole summary of my narrative is eat the rich. So, and this was especially noticeable depending on what part of the world you were in. So, you know, in the Wikipedia lists of all the different periods of time, it talks about in Greece, in Rome, you might have seen more texts that were from Socrates or Plato or story-based. But then in places like the UK, where like Catholics were starting to be more well known, they would go in and remove texts like that. They thought it was anti what they were trying to teach. Or if a king took over and didn't like the previous religion or the previous ruler, or they might go in and just clear out all that information or get rid of it and replace it with their own information. Not only did you not have a lot of widespread information that was easy to like disseminate and spread through the world, but it was being controlled by the people that were in power. As libraries started to become more popular, you would also see changes in how well it was funded. Again, the information that would be widely available or the information that would be in these libraries would be kind of handpicked depending on how much money somebody gave or how important somebody was. Or, you know, even just having access to information would only exist if you were in an area where people had enough money to buy books and have extra copies of things and then donate it to some place where it was all going to be held together. Back then, especially because everything was kind of hard to come by, these weren't borrowing libraries. You weren't going in and picking up a book and taking it home. A lot of times they might even be chained to the shelves, or there might be security so that you couldn't remove it. You'd have to go in and essentially like copy the information that you needed and bring it home, which again might be an issue if you don't have access to paper and writing implements. So then as houses and estates started to grow bigger and printing and publishing became more widely available, the printing press was invented, ink started to be more readily available. You could make it in different ways than like crushing up all the expensive metals and bugs and things that they were doing back when the Voynich manuscript was written. You started to see more private libraries that might be like within houses. You started to see people writing books that weren't just for like necessary information. You started to get romance novels and fictional stories. So it became kind of a show of wealth to be able to have a whole room in your house that you could just fill with books, because you had just, you know, expendable money to not only have a big house with a whole room that just held books, but you had to have money to be able to buy those books and afford those things. You also started to see more types of libraries. So I already mentioned there can be different types: private libraries, public libraries, religious libraries, governmental libraries. You know, everybody, now that information was easier to obtain and easier to print and easier to have copies of, then everybody had their own library and everybody made, kept their own texts and had their own things. This is, again, when you started to see like the less important things that might be written, but a lot of, like you always hear about like the Vatican or congressional libraries, those would have still been places that you needed like special access to get into, or probably you weren't leaving with the books from those places. You were you were copying it down while you were there. They were kept under lock and key or harder to access. Think like the restricted section of Hogwarts. Like you had to have special permission to be able to get into some of these places.
So the books howled when you
And that, yes. Haven't you read those before? It really wasn't until like the 18th century that we started to see libraries kind of on the large scale that we see them today. And even back then, it was still pretty exclusive. This is when we start to see subscription-based libraries. So here in the United States, Benjamin Franklin actually helped establish one of the first libraries, but it was subscription-based. Essentially, what Ben Franklin wanted was to get all of his smart friends around and hang out and talk about smart people things and like come up with ideas and discuss all of this stuff. But to be able to do that, they also wanted access to all of their books and their information and their things. So essentially he convinced all of his smart people friends to donate all of their books and their items and their knowledge and research, and then you would pay a subscription fee or a monthly fee or a yearly fee, and it would maintain not only the building that everything is in, but the books and all of that, and probably be used to buy additional information or buy new things. And everybody kind of played a part in it. Everybody had skin in the game, I guess is the best way to explain it. We started to see that a lot in the 18th century. People just kind of getting together and pooling their resources of books and then pooling their money to maintain things and keep that open for people. But still, this is people that are invited to these libraries. They're invited to join these. I want
to bring a situation to your mind and just picture one of Benny's buddies. He's getting ready to leave, and his wife is like, "Are you going to the library again?" And he's like, "Sorry, babe, I got skin in the game."
They're expecting me. Gotta get my money's worth. Exactly. That's exactly how it was. Ben told me. He was like, I had to make these guys think they had skin in the game.
High stakes.
So these subscription libraries start to grow, more people get involved, more knowledge is written and printed. And so eventually towards the end of the 18th century, we start to see circulating libraries, which is the start of what we see today. This is somewhere where you could actually go in and borrow, take home, and then return. These still required memberships. You still had to have special access if there were public libraries. They just weren't well known, they weren't well attended, they weren't built the way we see them today. They were there, smart people liked them, but they probably were invited or paid a membership to be able to be part of them. I kind of want to pause here before I go into the rest of it and talk about kind of what you talked about, eat the rich. Something that I think is really important to touch on here is how this information was controlled. From the dawn of time, from the minute we started recording information, it has always been controlled by who's in power. Whether it was, and let's be honest, it's always the rich people in power. It's always the people that have the money, that have the time, the estates, the land, the resources to be able to get into power. And then they are the ones that can control the information. Whether it was leaders in the communities, rulers, government, religious leaders, whoever it was, they were always in control of the information, both because it was their job to curate what the information was. So when you walk into a library today, somebody has chosen those books. Somebody has chosen the materials in there. And that's no different from how it was back then, except there was no overseeing organization to say, hey, yeah, you should have books about that or information about that, but what about the other side? Or what about this?
So if your librarian today decided she hates cats, so she removes every book that involves a cat out of everything.
Exactly.
Now you don't know cats exist because she removed it all.
Exactly. And this is exactly what they were doing. And not only that, they were curating the information that was available. And then they also had the ability to restrict who could even access that information. So it couldn't just be the lady down the street that needed to know how to heal her sick child with a fever. It was only the doctor of the town that paid his money and got his membership fee, and he can come look at my books. It's very detailed in segregation history or any of the awful history throughout the world where we segregated against people or saw them differently. You know, women, African Americans, any type of group that was marginalized or put down. We still have illiteracy problems in some communities, and just a general not wanting to read or not wanting to learn. And that can all stem back before the 18th century. We didn't even let women and African Americans and children into libraries. We didn't even allow them to have access to the information, to know these things about the world. That is still scary today, because as much as our country talks about freedom of speech and having these freedoms, our libraries are under attack. And we are trying to control, or people are trying to control, the information that is allowed in libraries, which is everything we've been trying to get away from since the 19th century. You know, these public libraries were started to provide a place where anybody could have access to all of this information in a way that we try to find all of the information that we can. Everything that's out there, everything that somebody could want, you can put into a public library. But if these even public libraries are controlled by the wrong people, they can still take the information out. They can still whitewash the information that's available. They can still, essentially change the narrative of any situation by controlling what information is available and who has access to that information. So that's my scary rant on that. Also, so in the late 18th century, this is when we started to see giant national libraries, kind of similar to what we see now. These are more show libraries. You'll see a lot of like historically significant texts or items. I always think, I mention it next week too, but I always think of the movie The Librarians with Noah Weil. So it's a magic-based show, and he has to like investigate different historical texts or artifacts. Different artifacts that, pop up, and they have to be found in a different part of the world, or they have to go on these adventures. I think we think of libraries and librarians as like boring people that read books all day, but these national libraries are just as big and finding out just as much information as like paleontologists and archaeologists and people that are out, digging up these artifacts. Our librarians are the ones that are really researching all of this and finding all of the historical texts and the historical data that goes along with these. So now we have these giant national libraries. The New York City Library is a good example. Or I believe probably in Philadelphia, probably in Washington, D.C. too. Big like governmental, congressional libraries where you can go in and find the records from 1776 when the United States became a country and all of those types of things.
Steal the Declaration of Independence.
And they'll write a movie about you.
They'll star Nick Cage.
Then obviously we see school libraries, governmental libraries, all those types of things start to become more accessible and more visible as we enter the 19th century. And so in the 19th century, this is when we start to see public libraries as we know them. And this is kind of an evolution of that like subscription-based system that I mentioned before, kind of evolved into the circulating library type style. And then it was actually the UK that formed the first publicly funded libraries and passed the Public Libraries Act of 1850, which is what started allowing and even suggesting that tax money could be collected to form public libraries.
Yay.
Luckily for us, the United States also jumped on that bandwagon and started to allow taxpayer money to fund public libraries. The first U.S. library was the Peterborough Town Library in Peterborough, New Hampshire. This was initially started by a donation from a local reverend who essentially had a whole bunch of books and decided that he wanted to start a town library. So he donated all of his books. He actually worked on setting up a board to run this library, and then used the new ideas to use tax money to fund the rest of it. So he got it set up and then set up the tax money so that it could be supported and maintained past his initial investment. I'm going to read this straight from Wikipedia because there was a lot of cool information into it. The year 1876 is key in the history of librarianship in the United States. The American Library Association was formed on October 6th, and the American Library Journal was founded, and Melville Dewey published his decimal-based system of classification. There was a rise in the establishment of public libraries, a movement led chiefly by newly formed women's clubs. Woohoo! They contributed their own collections of books, conducted lengthy fundraising campaigns for buildings, and lobbied within their communities for financial support. Andrew Carnegie was another huge proponent for libraries, and he started a huge number of the libraries that exist in the United States. The Carnegie Library Endowment Fund was founded in the 20th century, and basically what Andrew Carnegie used to do is same thing as the Reverend mentioned before, he'd go into these communities, help start and fund the initial setup of the library, but only if the communities could prove that they had tax revenue and stuff set up so that the libraries could continue, exist, and survive even once his initial investment was there. That part also mentions the American Library Association, and that is the last part that I'm going to talk about today. The American Library Association is kind of an overarching organization that oversees all of the public libraries in the United States, all of the public libraries that choose to belong to the American Library Association. And I will say that all of your libraries should choose to be part of this association, and if they don't, they are likely more of like a privately funded library, most likely. They probably have a lot more control and rules on what they present in the library and what they have in the library, whereas any library formed under the intention of the American Library Association, they have focused a lot on, as they've grown, making sure that libraries are accessible to the public and that they contain information that is for everyone. After a few years, they actually started or wrote in it and adopted the Library Bill of Rights in 1939. The summary of it is that libraries should provide materials and information that present all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should never be prescribed or removed because of whatever partisan or religious differences in beliefs. So you should never get rid of a text because it disagrees with any religion or vice versa. Materials should not be excluded because of their origin, background, or views of anybody that contributes to their creation. So we're not throwing artists or authors out because we don't like the color of their skin or because of what they believe in. Libraries should challenge censorship. They should cooperate with all persons and groups. A person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. Any library that has meeting rooms available should always strive to provide those facilities to anybody for any reason with any views. So if somebody wanted to come in and do a talk about climate change, it is okay to allow that. The same way if somebody wanted to come in and talk about anti-climate change, whatever that might be, they would have to allow that as well. Essentially, our American Library Association has put together a Bill of Rights to make sure that any information that is contained in a public library is available to all and could represent all viewpoints, all people, everybody in a community. They are striving very hard to keep information available to everybody.
I had no idea that existed.
I didn't either until, the library board stuff, like getting into all of that.
Oh, sure, yeah, of course.
As we talk about book bannings and people trying to do this in our libraries, there is a Bill of Rights against this. There's a Bill of Rights that tells us in our libraries that we support all people of all communities and all information that they might be interested in. I think that's incredibly important, especially as we go forward in the crazy world that we live in, keeping that in the forefront, because that is some of our biggest freedom, is having access to information. We live in a day and age where we have information at our fingertips almost 100% of the time. But if we lose that access to information, we're in trouble. But there are families in areas of the world and the country that don't have instant. There are places in my township that don't have good internet access.
Or families that can't afford devices that would connect to the internet.
Exactly. So we have to keep these public libraries free and accessible for everybody so that everybody in our world, or especially in our country or our world, has the ability to access information that they may not be able to otherwise. Because we can't give anybody a leg up in this country if they don't have access to information that everybody else has access to. Yay, libraries!
Oh, okay. I felt like there was more coming. I'm very sorry.
Next week, I'll get more into the fun stuff. I did want to talk about the history of libraries, kind of where they came from, because I thought it was very interesting that they were so exclusive leading up to where we are nowadays. But I do know that it was kind of boring. So next week...
I liked it. I learned a lot.
That's because you're me.
Because I'm a nerd.
Yes. Next week, I'll talk more about public libraries today and what they offer and how they work and all the amazing cool stuff that you can find in your public library today.
Awesome. Okay.
I like your flower drawing.
Thank you. I was going to talk about that on our next episode.
Oh, then pretend I didn't say anything.
Don't talk about my flowers.
Don't look at me.
This has been Dungeons and Dopamine. This is Jeopardy. You can podcast. This was Dungeons and Dopamine podcast.
Good job. You can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and on YouTube.
You can support us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/dungeonsdopamine. Woo!
You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit if you are too scared of Jessica to visit our Patreon.
You can reach out to us on any social media and at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com. Did you just say that?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I'm here. I'm ready.
Please reach out to us. Tell us your travel tips.
Woo-hoo.
Talk about libraries or all of those things.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, we love you.
Bye.
Bye.